Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. Still dominating all of the news is this Memorandum of Understanding. Supposedly, the President of the United States has brokered some type of super duper ultra deal with Vice President J.D. Vance at the helm. And the President of the United States came out very, very excited. He said, the great deal would bring peace and security to the whole region. He said, many presidents have tried to make peace with Iran and have all failed before me. The leaders of the region have, for the first time, found a president who can help them achieve real peace. With the opening of the strait upon the signing of the deal on Friday, for purposes of mine removal, oil will flow on both ends again for the region and the world, President Donald J. Trump. Now, this had a lot of individuals skeptical immediately, not for the reasons that you would think. Now, don't get me wrong. Immediately, social media said, it's here, it's not here, celebrate, oh, it's terrible, it's wonderful, it's awful. The reasons that I saw, a lot of kind of the open intelligence source community and a lot of the diplomatic wires started throwing around question marks like it was a gender nonconformity rally, was because the United States and only some parts of the United States government, the only people that have access to this Memorandum of Understanding are Ghalibaf's office in Iran with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and the parliament, and then the President of the United States and his team along with the Vice President. That's it. That's all we know. Now, the President, of course, he would come out later and start championing a few things. Before we get there, though, we got J.D. Vance, again, Vice President of the United States, who's been the lead on these particular strikes. Now, Vance is known to be the more moderate on these kinds of policies, not exactly as hawkish as the President of the United States. And in trying to broker some kind of peace or ceasefire or Memorandum of Understanding or IOU or Uber Eats delivery order, whatever you want to call it, we have no idea what this was. And the entire weekend, a lot of questions, confusion. Is it here? Is it not? What's going on? Was it a feint? So first of all, Vance went on with CBS this morning. He did a lot of media hits today because over the weekend he was annoyed. He said that there was a lot of criticism from all over. And his criticism was that there were people who were calling this deal terrible and awful and not good and et cetera ad nauseum, but they hadn't even read the Memorandum of Understanding. He said on June 12th, quote, I'm seeing a lot of fake information about a potential deal to reopen the strait and end Iran's nuclear weapons program. First, the Iranians are not receiving any cash, and no funds are being released for simply signing a deal or attending a meeting. Because President Trump had wanted a big meeting either on Sunday or he wanted it this week as early as possible in Europe. The vice president said, quote, the deal is structured to ensure that the U.S. and its allies' concerns are being prioritized, and that if the Islamic Republic of Iran meets its obligations, then economic benefits will flow to them and to the entire region. This deal has the potential to remake the region and lead to lasting peace. I've noticed a couple of bizarre things in the reporting over the last few hours. First, people who rightly said Donald Trump was a historic president a month ago, now criticizing a deal based on unconfirmed media reports. Second, the people who say you can't trust a word said by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, who apparently believe anonymously sourced media posts. He said the president is going to get us a good outcome one way or the other. Now, two things really quick. First of all, Vance is the guy that did a lot of the negotiating here. So he knows about the MOU. He knows what's in the MOU. So why not share with us what is in the MOU? And he was pressed on this today specifically because if we don't have direct sources, and again, this is one of the things. This isn't like it's some super duper secret spy plan. It isn't as though we're looking at the plans for the Death Star here. There's no Tantive 4 escaping from Iran to the United States. I don't think so. So then release the plans. What's the MOU? What is this? And there were speculations that came out that Iran was about to get a huge windfall of the most money that you could possibly fathom. 300 billion simoleons. This is what Vance said in response to this on CBS this morning.
Walk through some of this. The Iranians are saying that they're going to have access to a $300 billion reconstruction fund. True or false?
Now, by the way, the framing of that question, it's not a leading question. It's not. The Iranians spent the entire weekend making fun of the United States, making fun of President Trump, saying that they got everything forever, all the ways, and they're amazing. Well, except for some parts of the IRGC that we're going to get to here in a minute, who are very, 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 very angry. But anyway, to the matter at hand, he says, so look, the Iranians say they're getting $300 billion out of this. Is this true?
Well, Ed, that's the sort of thing they could have access to, funded by the Gulf Coast Coalition, so long as they honor their end of the obligation. I think that one of the things you're going to see, Ed, and people have to be skeptical of this, is that the hardliners in the Iranian system will overemphasize the benefits that Iran gets while underemphasizing all the things that they have to concede and all the things they have to provide in order to get these benefits. So we absolutely are open to the Gulf Coast countries investing in the reconstruction of Iran, but only if Iran ends their nuclear program, ends their enriched stockpile of material, and is really open to an inspections and enforcement regime that gives the American people confidence they're never going to have a nuclear weapon. So
the concerns from that statement from the vice president there are that this is essentially just the JCPOA, the Obama-style deal, Part 2 electric boogaloo. Now again, after the Iranian regime has suffered a significant amount of damage. Yes, after the previous supreme leader of Iran was sent to his final judgment. But at least as far as this deal is concerned, it's not looking too good. But that's the thing. No one's seen the deal. The rumors that he addressed there were that Qatar and a bunch of other Gulf state powers were going to walk in and either release funds that had been confiscated from Iran previously or invest in Iran directly itself, for example, Qatar. So do we get an actual answer? No, we got well, if they want, they could have access to it. Maybe it'll happen. Jake Tapper on The Lead today in the 4 p.m. hour tried to get a little bit more clarity on this, and we started off with kind of the same answer from the vice president.
There hasn't been a single dollar of sanctions relief or unfrozen assets, either from the United States or any of our allies in the Gulf. I've seen some misreporting about that. I don't know where it comes from. Where it
comes from is that there have been diplomatic sources and Middle Eastern news sources suggesting that other countries are preparing certain accounts to release dollars to the Iranian regime. Now, if that's incorrect, then it's incorrect. And Middle Eastern reporting being spotty is, that's a day ending in Y. But Americans are rightly concerned and confused about this because there were a lot of people, both from the isolationist side of the aisle, that when Trump said, just trust me, we're doing everything correctly. And then those from the war hawkish side, not the neocons, but those who say, finish your opponent and be done with them and end them and salt the earth. That kind of a crew. Well, boys, girls, and squirrels, we were also told, trust me. And so at the end of this, when you say there's a big deal and everyone should be super duper ultra happy about it, and the American people don't even get a chance to hear about it until it's signed, there are some questions and concerns, and rumors gain more credibility.
That it comes from, Jake, is what you're going to expect is that certain elements within the Iranian system, certain hardliners in particular, they're going to overemphasize in an effort to sell it to certain domestic populations. They're going to overemphasize what Iran gets from the bargain without ever articulating the things that Iran has to give up in order to get those benefits.
I can't stand that reasoning. I hate it. I don't believe that people, that domestic populations, that whatever are cattle. I hate this when it's from John Thune. I don't care for it when it's from a Republican in New York. You have to talk to Republicans in New York differently because they're not like Republicans from Indiana. And you have to. I don't like that. I have a fundamental belief that no matter, I'm going to be in New York this week for a series of media hits and things. I just got back a couple of weeks ago from DC. Of course, I do this show from Indiana, though all of my colleagues are on the East Coast. I have been to a lot of different parts of the country, and I have realized that a lot of American people have the same common sense understandings of morality and ethics. And I've been to a lot of different parts of the world, as many of you have who are tuning into this show. And the idea that we have to talk some way to France because, well, we don't want the French to be mad. Maybe they're just going to get, I don't care for that. Just the clear, here's what's going on, here's not what's going on, not making excuses for a bunch of people in the Iranian parliament or in the IRGC that are still doing the death to America thing. Chanting death to America is bad. It is not a cultural appeasement kind of a thing. And the vice president flirting with that language here, that Obama-style State Department garbage, that's not an answer to the question.
To be very clear, this agreement contemplates a very significant sanctions relief package for the Iranian people that transforms how they interact with the world and with the region. But they only get that benefit if they meet their obligations under the agreement. So
now that's actually the key part of the entire line. Radio crew, we're going to send you to the commercial, but I'll give you the spoiler here while you guys are away and we continue on the live stream. That means this memorandum of understanding, the deal, it's going nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Oh, you're not supposed to, spill the beans, all the way. Alas, that's the case here. If we're really going to do all right, as long as you do and we do and you do and we do, and honor, there are two kinds of societies that are prevalent on today's day and landscape in anthropology, in sociology, as a soft science as it is. There are trust-based cultures and there are honor-based cultures. So honor-based cultures found in the Middle East, in many third world countries, believe that honesty and truth do not matter. All that matters is how you are perceived. And if you exude strength, then you are to be given honor. That is an honor-based culture. A trust-based culture believes there is a system of morality and ethics, in this case, from God Almighty himself, that dictates what it is that I do and what it is that I am not allowed to do. And whether or not you act a certain way, my code of ethics is governed by something that is bigger than myself. That's a trust-based society. Trust-based societies can only negotiate with honor-based societies if the honor-based society, Iran, is aware that if they screw up, the United States will put them in the Stone Age. Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, understood that. John Paul Jones, the greatest admiral, arguably, in U.S. history, understood that very clearly. It is a fundamental truth. Those who do not have a code of constant moral ethics that governs their behavior, that just rape and pillage as they see fit, they won't do, okay, I do, you do. That's not how that works.
I would caution everybody to be skeptical of what certain propaganda elements within the regime are saying. The truth is, there is a really big opportunity for the Iranians, but they only get the benefit of that opportunity if they do the things they promise they're going to do.
Okay, that's true. Wholeheartedly, completely true and clear. And by the way, Vance is in a very tough position here. Don't take this being objective with what I'm getting from the report, what I'm getting from his answers. Again, that's all we have. As though I'm just trying to be mean because I don't particularly like the outcome. I don't think that's the case. Now, if he does get down to talking a little bit about sanctions and this kind of if they're going to behave and if they're not going to behave, and this is where he actually lets in the most information that we have about the MOU, other than what Donald Trump has said about it and what, again, Vance is right. You should be skeptical of everyone else saying things about it. So here is Vance saying what the MOU actually is.
There hasn't been a single dollar of sanctions relief or unfrozen assets, either from the United States or any of our allies in the Gulf. I've seen some misreporting about that. I don't know where it comes from. Where I suspect that it comes from, Jake, is what you're going to expect is that certain elements within the Iranian system, certain hardliners in particular, they're going to overemphasize in an effort to sell it to certain domestic populations. They're going to overemphasize what Iran gets from the bargain without ever articulating the things that Iran has to give up in order to get those benefits.
Okay, so again, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, we're going to ask, Trump does the exact same thing, by the way. And I don't have any issue saying that. The man's got an ego. He gets out and says, greatest deal in all of history. You'll never need another bill than the big, beautiful bill. So beautiful, you'll think Sydney Sweeney looks like hot trash.
To be very clear, this agreement contemplates a very significant sanctions relief package for the Iranian people that transforms how they interact with the world and with the region. But they only get that benefit if they meet their obligations under the agreement. So I would caution everybody to be skeptical of what certain propaganda elements within the regime are saying. The truth is, there is a really big opportunity for the Iranians, but they only get the benefit of that opportunity if they do the things they promise they're going to do.
So I will apologize real quick. I believed I had it on the audio, but it's widely reported. If you want to double check my sources, please do so. Vance also said in this interview with Tapper, also in with CNBC this morning, that the MOU was a page and a half. It was 1.5 pages, and it is very vague. And that tells you all you need to know. That tells you all you need to know. I could be like other conservative pundits and analysts today and other news brokers and tell you why it matters that this is vague. If it's very vague and it's just like an IOU hug and a kiss, we'll do this and you do this, it'll all be wonderful. It's worthless. It's worthless. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you, oh, actually, it's possible. No, it's not. The idea that we're going to have a vague understanding that that's suddenly going to work, I just don't see it. I don't see it. And by the way, there have already been explosions reported around Keshem Island that the Iranian state media is reporting is just maritime activity. Okay, interesting stuff for sure. Now, we have a lot more on this to cover. Of course, the President of the United States on some other deal stuff. In fact, he did say when the details of the release are going to be released, the details of that deal. We got to bring the radio crew back in, and then we're going to get to some of this regarding the B-52 crash as well. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. So the president says, again, without any further ado, you want to see the MOU? This is at the G7 conference in France. Here's the president saying, oh, probably released Friday. And he's already aware of the pressure that is on him because of what he immediately refers to. Because if you're thinking a deal with the Iranian regime, everyone immediately thinks of the Obama deal. No one of who that was not a hardline conservative at the time. No one was more critical of that regarding Obama than President Trump on social media and any media in general. Here was the president making that case regarding it being released probably Friday-ish today.
Mr. President, when will the text of the MOU be released?
I think pretty soon. I would say, I want it to be released because it's a very powerful document. It's not like the Obama document, which was just a terrible document. This is a very powerful document, and I want it to be released. So probably pretty soon. I would say sometime after Friday, because the strait opens completely. It's open now, but it opens completely. We'll have all the mines knocked out of, for the most part. We have a lot of lanes right now already.
Mr. President.
So I think sometime in the very near future.
Now, two things can also be true here on the back end that you should be aware of. Number one, this deal is being treated as though we have already been kind of brokered and cornered into something. No, there's a very good chance that 2 weeks from now, we will all be trying to remember the details of this particular weekend and story because it'll fall apart and we'll be doing something completely different. That's a possibility. And one of the reasons I say that is that one of the key parts of this particular deal, as it were, is already, first of all, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps inside of Iran are already rioting over this. There are several leaks from inside IRGC leadership that are making their way onto state TV and have been since taken down. Some of them are remaining, that are suggesting that the United States should never be allowed to sign a deal with Iran, and they're going to win. And do not mess with the resistance front. No one can stand against Iran or Hezbollah and all this other stuff. So it's not working out very well inside Iran as well. People don't like it over on that side. Tehran Mayor Ali Reza Zaghani says, quote, "Our war with America continues and does not end with the Memorandum of Understanding. Our war with America is an existential war. The Islamic Revolution in Iran undermined the structural order America established after World War II." True. And anyone who tells you different, I'm sorry, the chance death to America and arming every terrorist that you can, from Hamas to Hezbollah, which killed, again, U.S. Marines, a number of other terrible atrocities over the years, that is fundamentally correct in the statement that he said objectively. Now, that said, again, Hezbollah has since fired weapons against Israel. Israel's fired back. Trump didn't like that over the weekend. It's continued since. There is not going to be any magical ceasefire here. There isn't. Now, here's what remains to be seen. Maybe I shouldn't say this. Don't care. There is a chance that that this kind of dragging on is a kind of heated a disagreement, let's say, between the Marco Rubio style of foreign policy and the J.D. Vance style of foreign policy. And if J.D. Vance and the Steve Witkoff team, I am wholly speculating based on information I have as a disclaimer. if it is Vance, who is basically asking the president, please, no, let's wait, let's not do anything, and it is Rubio that says, let's take him out like Maduro, then one of these is going to win. And it's going to be whichever one Trump doesn't feel embarrasses him. That'll be the answer. Now, is that really, is that really gauche? Is that really basic? Yes, but like most things in life, the most obvious explanation is usually the explanation. Now, that brings us over to an update on a story from earlier today in which an Air Force B-52 Stratofortress crashed at Edwards Air Force Base in California, just outside of Edwards Air Force Base in California. A horrible, horrible thing. Of course, the smoke that's been pouring out. I believe we do have this particular footage here to share with you from Fox News earlier today. Tragic. So we don't have any information otherwise about this particular crash just yet. But the 8 crew members who were aboard are believed dead. The news release from Edwards Air Force Base, that's the 412th Test Wing, Office of Public Affairs, says, quote, an Air Force B-52 Stratofortress carrying 8 people on a routine test mission crashed today shortly after takeoff at 11:20 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Initial indications are that the crash was not survivable. Emergency response personnel are on scene, and officials are working to account for all personnel, and the crash is under investigation. We don't expect anything during this show that we could tell you about what it is and isn't. Again, like all things, I want to give you the information that it is that we have, and if there is any speculation to be had, I better have a good reason for doing so. So speaking of speculation with no good reason for doing so at all, and I mean just the goofiest decisions possible, Gavin Newsom of California, the governor of California, has decided that he's really, really angry he isn't getting enough attention. I'm not joking. We're getting closer to the 2028 election season. This midterm shall too come and pass. And then you're going to have the front runners jockeying for a position. Is it going to be J.B. Pritzker? No. Is it going to be AOC? Maybe. Is it going to be Kamala Harris?
Nope.
Maybe. Who's it going to be? Gavin Newsom wants to be that guy. And so he decided that in the middle of what is really kind of a down news cycle, in case you weren't aware, because of the last week was just the World Cup stuff, the NBA Finals stuff, and then some kind of lulling, meaning just kind of like deadpan, very little major stuff happening compared to the rest of the Trump second administration. Gavin Newsom decided now was the time to point all of the cameras at him and go. In very bizarro world, anti-Trump, but like the mirror Superman universe image Trump. So Gavin Newsom gets in front of the country today and announces that he and his wife, because, you know, it's a family affair, they've joined Donald Trump's hit list. Ooh, exciting. The hit listiest of hit lists. Here you go. Gavin Newsom, guys. It's big. The hit list is here.
In recent days, federal agents have knocked on the doors of family, friends, and former employees.
Hold on, wait. This sounds like pearl clutching. Someone get my pearls. All right. I'm ready, Stan. Go ahead.
Not because they found a crime, because they're simply trying to find one. They're demanding records. They're abusing the grand jury process, digging through years and years of random documents.
Random documents. What has the DOJ been investigating in Minnesota and in California? Man, and now there's this new guy that's not Pam Bondi that doesn't just get up and say platitudes from the podium. There's this new Todd Blanche kind of a dude. And he's actually moving Tim Walz and Keith Ellison up in Minnesota, we'll get to him later, for another kind of little prosecution institution. Oh boy. Radio crew, we're going to send you guys over to your commercial break on the live stream, youtube.com/Daily Signal. We're going to continue and learn a little about what's got Gavin Newsom so spooked. Don't let the makeup fool you. This man's is as pale as a ghost. An SPLC funded one, that is. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, Gavin, I got my pearls. Go for it.
Donald Trump isn't just coming after me because of my mean tweets. He's
correct. He's not coming after you because of your mean tweets. A lot of mean tweets are sent every ding-dong-dang day.
Coming after me because I'm considering running for president.
So does this count as a campaign announcement? Does this count? He's targeting me because I'm running for an office he's not running for someday.
Because he hates that I've consistently called him out over and over again for his lies and deceit. Donald Trump is simply the most corrupt president in American history.
Oh, the most corrupt president. So, okay, I enjoy a good bit of partisan exaggeration as much as the next pundit. I enjoy it quite a bit. However, if you are going to make the case that he's the most corrupt president ever, not even close. We have all kinds of scandals in American history involving corruption. The next presidential election after the Civil War was a doozy regarding corruption, up to and including bribing a Supreme Court justice with a senator seat in order to facilitate the next presidential election by like switching a vote on the committee. No.
He's turned the levers of government into his own personal power ministries to reward cronies and to try to jail his opponents. His personal attorney now runs the Department of Justice, which has repeatedly gone after his political enemies.
So what he doesn't mention is that a lot of the political enemies that Donald Trump has, again, opened or has presided over his Department of Justice investigating, they have the case has been dropped because there was nothing. They did an investigation concluded. That's it, done. I don't remember, Donald Trump sending the goon squad out there anyway. No. So Newsom goes on to say that he's on some super duper ultra hit list. Very, very exciting stuff. And it very quickly leaves any kind of Donald Trump is coming after me, I'm going to fight. He just starts like yelling like an old man at children on his lawn. Like, get off my lawn. And Donald Trump stole the presidency and he's just selling it. He's selling it to Monster energy drinks. Here you go.
Donald Trump is selling the presidency. He's running the largest cash heist in American political history, trading foreign tariff relief for approval of his golf courses.
Again, no, Donald Trump has consistently lost on much of the tariff front. If you want to make the case that Donald Trump is somehow schmoozing a big, huge financial heist, I will remind you time and time again, Donald Trump and his family are incredibly, incredibly wealthy. They are. Trump is losing money and a very quiet retirement running for the presidency. You cannot simultaneously claim that Donald Trump is super duper evil, mastermind, super duper mob boss, and that he's also a blundering, dundering idiot who can't even tie his own shoes. You can't have it both ways here.
Day trading behind the Resolute desk, reaping hundreds of millions of dollars in personal profit.
That is a very wild thing, considering what it is that Gavin Newsom and his wife, the lady who runs who was involved with the nonprofit and the diaper company that is now giving diapers on the taxpayer dime at like 2.5 times their actual market value. That needs to be done through a grant system because they can't just, give away diapers as like a tax write-off. That's his wife is involved in that scheme. So why is Gavin Newsom actually freaking out? He is losing it because the DOJ is beginning new huge investigations. No, they are looking into the very same fraud allegations and whistleblower cover-ups that Tim Walz is fighting off and A.G. Ellison in Minnesota are fighting off. We got to bring the radio crew back in. We're going to dig into this. It gets kind of interesting. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
All right, boys, girls, and squirrels. So what is it that Gavin Newsom is panicking about? Well, he's very, very, very worried because there are multiple federal investigations into Gavin Newsom and his orbit. Now, these have been underway since approximately 2025, although some investigations into Gavin Newsom started under the Joe Biden administration. So much for that narrative. I was so confident that when he said that he was being politically investigated. So I guess Joe Biden and Donald Trump are in cahoots to get Gavin Newsom or something. So these particular investigations reportedly stem from whistleblower tips. That's according to Reuters. Now, here are the subjects and links. Here's what he's actually being investigated for. So first of all, his latest wife, Jennifer Seibel Newsom, on her finances and taxes. So scrutiny of her nonprofit, the California Partners Project, which received millions of dollars in donations, reports note nearly $4 million in payments to her and her company. Former Chief of Staff Dana Williamson linked to a separate corruption and fraud case. Williamson pleaded guilty to wire fraud involving a dormant campaign account. Now, the probe hasn't implicated Newsom directly, but here's the problem. So if in Minnesota there was all of this Somali migrant fraud, Medicare and Medicaid fraud, and autism fund fraud, and grant system fraud, and NGO fraud, and wire fraud, and mail fraud, and mortgage fraud, and on and on and on. And then when whistleblowers said, hey, Tim, this is kind of a problem, Tim said, no, you're just racist. Go ahead and throw her out of the position here. Well, it looks like Tim Walz and AG Keith Ellison, may have something to do with impeding a federal investigation. If you want to call the fire department because you say, hey, Tony, look, my house is on fire. And I said, well, you need to call the fire department then. And then as you're picking up the landline to call, I snip the phone cable. I am responsible for impeding emergency services in your area, and that's a crime. That's the same thing here. So after Gavin Newsom's orbit has been implicated in all of this fraud, then people are going to start asking questions. You know, a woman can only survive so many men as a wealthier and wealthier and wealthier and wealthier widow before you get to the fifth marriage and she's got the term Black Widow. I mean, this is that kind of basic pattern recognition that is really hilarious to watch him freak out over. Now, here are some things that this is not related to at all, even though I'm seeing some other articles that are trying to suggest this. And so the DOJ sued California, Newsom, and the Attorney General in California over a state law banning private detention facilities. That's a totally different lawsuit. And in 2025, the DOJ sued Newsom and state officials over alleged race-based redistricting. Again, still underway in that kind of an argument. So we'll see. There is one extra piece here before we move on past Gavin Newsom, again, who's many have crowned Trump's primary opposition. So Jennifer Van Laar, she's an investigative journalist, and she's the managing editor of Red State, which I highly recommend. It's a project of townhall.com, I believe. She's pointed out maybe you're being investigated to Gavin Newsom because your finances don't add up, or because your wife's LLC received the deed to a $9.1 million home a week before the LLC was even created, while you still had your Fair Oaks home. How was that LLC capitalized? She does some other math. It says $1.4 million in yearly income, $450,000 in federal and state taxes, $200,000 paid to domestic workers, $150,000 to private school tuition, $200,000 in property taxes, and $20,000 at least in utilities. Meaning we're at $1 million in expenses. So if you add $120,000 year mortgage payment for a Sacramento house and a $506,000 a year mortgage payment for a new house, then you don't add in food, clothes, entertainment, sports for 4 kids. The finances aren't adding up. Again, if you do not want to be accused of being in orbit of fraud, then maybe don't hang around with the fraud crew. Now, there is one thing that's really, really funny, and I've been looking forward to showing you guys. I mentioned Tim Walz. Someone from Newsom's office forgot to tell Tim Walz not to tweet about this. He said today, quote, "The Justice Department is not a tool for the president to investigate his political opponents. Welcome to the BS Investigations Club, Governor Newsom. You're in good company." Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. So just after Tim Walz had to bail on his gubernatorial reelection campaign because of all the fraud allegations and the other disaster areas, now he's like, oh, Gavin Newsom, you and me are like 2 peas in a fraudulent pod. Excellent. Thrilling. There's a lot of other panic and upset around the country. Of course, many of you have already seen just the sheer chaos and outrage and anger and a list of adjectives over the President of the United States hosting a UFC event at the White House. Now, I don't see the big deal. There are a lot of people who are apparently super duper ultra angry over this one. I don't see it. And look, maybe it's just because I'm blind and I'm in the middle of the country and I know a lot of people who are into alternative sports. And I also have a bit of a personal affection for boxing, given that every plebe is forced to do it and not break their nose before Friday night dates. But I will say, when you have the Weather Channel that is like hoping for the event to fail, that's really, really weird. So Jimmy Kimmel, citing, again, the Weather Channel, pointed out that heading for Donald Trump's big Freedom 250 UFC event, again, because they can't complain that it's taxpayer money being wasted, because the UFC is paying for all of it. And Paramount as well, I should say. So what do? They start suggesting on June 14th, quote, the UFC Freedom 250 event, according to the freaking Weather Channel, is facing a chaotic weather setup on the White House South Lawn with a 60% chance of thunderstorms, heavy downpours, wind gusts of up to 34 miles an hour threatening to delay the outdoor fights. On top of the storm risk, brutal DC humidity is driving a triple-digit heat index, along with massive swarms of mosquitoes and gnats that fighters will have to battle inside the cage. Okay, guys, why are we doing the weather forecast as though we're trying to manifest the plagues of Egypt? Maybe it's different since the days of, the wonderful fusion jazz and enjoying, scrolling vistas of weather forecasting. Now we're predicting swaths of insects, and then frogs, and the Holy Spirit shall fly through the city of Cairo, and every door should have the blood applied upon the post. And of course, nothing happened. You'll know this because it was talked about all over social media. Essentially, the weather split around DC, which, by the way, a lot of people are saying this is some kind of a divine intervention thing. If you live anywhere near I-70, one of the great interstates that cuts the country in half, you will know that weather often either is north of you or south of you. Very rarely is it right over you. And if it's right over you, you are well and truly bleeped. There are large concrete structures like interstates and also cities, former science teacher going to jump in here, that do in fact kind of change and affect weather. That's why you don't see major cities that are flattened every single storm season by tornadoes, though they can happen. Anywho, so one of the cool events over that UFC event was the rainbow with the lightning across it. Really cool photos and videos came out of it. It's just cool. It's just some of that stuff is again, neat. I will say this. I have watched a few of the clips afterward. I was spending time with my family. My kids are a little young to be watching the UFC, so I had to catch some of that stuff later. The fanfare, I love it. Again, I am very, very much a down at my home heart, a Teddy Rooseveltian imperialist. So if the president of the United States actually lives up to the hype and walks out with trumpets after smacking around Venezuela and Cuba and Iran, not exactly a hard sell for me. Here's the president walking out, trumpet fanfare with Dana White. Now, I know a lot of libertarians really don't like that I like that stuff, but I don't care. So I know the neocons, the Nikki Haley-ish kind of wishy-washy kinds don't care for that either. I don't care. If America is going to celebrate its 250th properly, it better do so with some fanfare. And that includes one of the sports directly participated in by a president at the White House, which the UFC noticed. Radio crew, we're going to send you over to the commercial break. We're going to continue on the live stream. Be on the lookout for outraged crowds at wrestling cages. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, so the octagon is set. And people are freaking out. Oh, how could this happen? This is so terrible. MS Now, formerly MSNBC, freaking out. They have Miles Taylor on to break down into sad tears. Oh, it's embarrassing and tragic and awful. Oh.
The country, I think, was humiliated by this spectacle. If you were going to create an image, Steph, of American decline, you could not have created an image that echoed better back to Roman times than this.
Okay, to be clear, at the same time that the left is suggesting, and all over social media, all over corporate media, slamming the UFC as white trash. Consistently, by the way. Slamming the UFC, oh, it's white trash, it's so terrible, it's so awful, because brands that they do not use, that they don't purchase, are involved. Monster Energy Drinks had a sponsorship there. And people are outraged. By the way, when you go to the G7 and outside, you can see the venue, which was sponsored by BMW and Audi and various other high-end brands. Oh, all of a sudden it's okay. Oh, all of a sudden that's fine. But this is the reason the left makes no gains in masculinity whatsoever at all. They're like, oh, we have Graham Plattner, the alleged domestic abuser, the not alleged mercenary. So faking a big portion of his PTSD. I'm going to make that perfectly clear. Again, guys struggling with PTSD don't immediately come home, turn around, and go work for Blackwater. Anywho, and then also, may have been messaging little girls on Kik, the Predator minor messaging app, up to like a week and a half ago, while cheating on his wife. So they have that guy, their masculine man, and they have James Tallarico, I'm totally not a vegan, and also God is non-binary, and I love trans children, and all other kinds of nutcase nonsense. So those are their masculine guys, while the rest of their party with Miles Taylor here just calls any event that involves dudes fighting as barbaric and a decline of the country. I'm here to remind you, yet again, as I reminded other teachers in my master's program, I'm here to tell you again, that it is just as legitimate to use a word problem in the middle of the country that involves the UFC as it is to use lacrosse for a word problem up in New England. And why do I say that? Because I used to criticize, I have a degree in curriculum development, it's completely useless. And I used to criticize the big textbooks like Pearson, Houston Mifflin, etc., for writing these big textbooks with a bunch of elitist, non-culturally relevant word problems, and then students hated it and they couldn't figure out why. That's kind of what I'm saying here. The left has no idea that a lot of the country does in fact view boxing, mixed martial arts, wrestling as a sport. And they should be, because they are competitions to which there are championships, tournaments. Even CNN and some of their interesting crew on the documentary side recognized that this was okay. It wasn't political. It was just awesome.
I mean, having been here all weekend, talking to people from the Lincoln Memorial on Friday night where they had the ceremonial press conference. Obviously here at the Ellipse last night there was the ceremonial weigh-in, and of course tonight we're going to have the big fight. It's been a very surreal weekend here in Washington, D.C. I mean, this feels like a UFC event, right? And nobody here is really talking politics.
There you go. Not bad. Radio crew, we're going to bring him in. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
At the end of last week, we again played a clip of good old Michelle Obama saying that how awful it was because, no one ever lets black women complain. No one's ever allowed to complain if you're a black woman, and everyone is just always so mean and so terrible and so awful. And this just came after Jasmine Crockett had spent a ton of time suggesting that the reason the country was awful and that, sure, maybe the Metcalf family had lost their son after Carmelo Anthony stabbed him. So Jasmine Crockett said this while defending the murderer of Austin Metcalf, said his family had never experienced anything as bad as Jasmine Crockett had as a black woman. So again, we're doing this whole thing all over again where it's just the whining and the crying. Well, I'm here to share with you great and joyous news. Jasmine Crockett and Michelle Obama once again have a chance to whine and cry. I know, you were really concerned that wasn't going to happen. So one fighter, Josh Hockett, got up after his particular fight and he said the bad joke that you're not allowed to make that joke. Now, you can make jokes that Vice President J.D. Vance had sex with a couch. You can make jokes about Donald Trump and his daughter. You can make jokes about all different kinds of really inappropriate or just kind of like dark humor stuff. But boy, if you ever, say that Michelle Obama is a man, ooh, I'm telling you, the school marms, School marm and librarian crew's gonna come out and get you. Anyway, here's the clip.
And lastly, Michelle Obama is a man. Am I right, America? Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, so everyone's laughing because, I mean, again, fooling around. Again, kind of a common joke. Some people believe it out there. Do I? No, I don't. Sorry. But I will say this, and I want to make this perfectly clear. Is this worth getting bent out of shape about? No. Why? Because every time we sit through, well, I don't know, I don't sit through them, but I see the clips the next morning, the Oscars or the Grammys or the Tonys or the Academy Awards of whatever, we hear people get up on stage and say truly disturbing, disgusting things. And why is that played off? Well, it's, you know, it's the emotions are running high. It's a very big victorious thing for them. And who cares if they say a little something? That's how that's played off. So I don't care as much here. Now, some people suggested that it was in poor taste and that I guess President Trump needed to apologize for this or whatever. Okay, again, all right. And then we get to the best of all, and this is, Whoopi Goldberg and Sonny Hostin have decided again, this is clearly evidence of not just racism, because clearly the only reason that people are making fun of Michelle Obama is because she's a black woman, which the desperation to be a victim. Now, again, I can still think that the joke is like kind of played out, but either way, I mean, it's not racist. Going further and saying it's evidence of slavery, though, bro, here you go.
Last night, you know who celebrated his 80th birthday at an event billed as UFC Freedom 250. Featuring
Was there a single like structural program promotion of Donald Trump other than him like walking out and then sitting and enjoying the fights? That would be a strong nope. No. Anyway.
Cage matches on the South Lawn of the White House. White House denies accusations that he's cashing in on the event, saying there's no conflict of interest because you know whose assets are in a trust managed by his kids.
They think they have something here, as though like his kids set it up and then we're getting a ton of money out of this. No.
If it's in a trust and I'm managing it, maybe he's not going to get no money. But if it's in a trust and his kids are managing it, they might get some money. He might get some money. Correct. But that's neither here nor there. There was also one fighter who used his victory speech to make a derogatory slur against former First Lady Michelle Obama. What did you make of yesterday's event?
I do want to address the derogatory slur.
Slur? Derogatory slur? It's not a slur. It's not. I mean, it's an accusation. It's a joke. Maybe even a joke that you find in poor taste. You may not like it. But saying that this is some kind of a derogatory slur
About the former First Lady Michelle Obama, because I think it's important to address. And we won't dignify what was said by repeating it, but you should look at. Because
then it would just be the claim that Michelle's a man, and said it joking, laughing, everyone started laughing. So that's just it. That's the whole thing. Again, Melania Trump, by many individuals on the left, from official places, has been called a prostitute, illegal immigrant so many times we've lost count. But okay.
Up. And I think the reason that it's important is because for a long time, and the roots are in slavery, black women.
The roots are in slavery for a long time. That's why. The reason that Michelle Obama, after a couple of photos that appeared to have some type of a bulge, was called a dude. Because again, there were just conspiracy theories and jokes, like the Muslim prayer curtain nonsense. Pretend there's no such thing as a Muslim prayer curtain. That whole goofy goober whatever. Okay, in the burgeoning age of Facebook. All right, these things popped up out of nowhere and they were jokes. Okay, I mean, and they are. They're memed by the younger generations. They're memes. I mean, some older crews still believe them. I hear you, whatever. But making the biggest deal about this and then saying, well, it all goes back to slavery. Bruh.
Have been slurred and made to feel that they were unattractive, made to feel that they were masculine, made to feel that they didn't have the femininity that a white woman would have. And so there's this intersectionality between racism and sexism that was on full display at the White House.
See, that's what it was. See, it all comes from back that someone's like, oh, that's a very athletic one. Oh, so she must be a man because she will never have the feminine primitivity wiles of a southern white woman. I mean, just it's so stupid. It's so stupid. Okay, as though the real scandal again was that just very recently in the Biden administration, we didn't have dudes with their fake boobies out dancing around and a bunch of like openly sexual stuff on the White House lawn. I mean, a contest of fighting like Teddy Roosevelt hosted at the White House. No. But I mean, big, huge celebrate who we have sex with parties. Hey, yeah, that's honorable.
Welcome to the White House.
Thank you.
Happy Pride Month.
Yeah.
Happy Pride Year. Happy Pride Life.
Pride Month, Pride Year, Pride Life, Pride Brandon, Pride Me, Pride You.
Yeah!
Transgender children.
You are beautiful.
You are heard.
You belong.
You're understood.
You are loved.
Just the kissing. There wasn't any of that at the UFC event either, by the way. There wasn't any, oh, you're just some... None of that. It was just, hey, beat the crap out of this guy. It's awesome. And then they did, and it was awesome. Just the silliness, the constant silliness on display. It's something. Radio crew, we will catch you guys on the flip side here. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC. We're going to continue on the live stream. Again, there's nothing here in all of the wine and the freakouts everywhere. And by the way, hopefully my analysis this evening on a lot of these various news events, what you see are a lot of people that are losing their ever-loving mind because there's very little going on. For the news cycle that we're in with the president right now, there are people that are trying to make everything as awful and evil. He's filled the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. Oh, the horror. That kind of crap. Every single thing is a crisis. No, it's not. It's not. And it doesn't mean that anyone, and the same thing with some of the other things people are freaking out about. Again, until the Memorandum of Understanding is released, I'm not going to lose it. Am I skeptical? Yeah. Am I going to lose it? No. I haven't seen the indictments into Gavin Newsom yet. Am I losing it? Putting with the PNG up on for the thumbnail of the video with Gavin Newsom and his face is behind bars. Oh, God, nope. I'm going to wait and see. Rather than trying to suggest to each and every one of you that this is this is incredible and it's amazing, it's the best thing ever, or it's actually super duper awful and just the world's worst, whatever. Now that does bring us to a couple of other big kind of pieces of news on things, mainly that the federal government has banned 2 whole major AI models. Now, I know that's not really, really exciting stuff. There are people that are shivering their timbers and panicking on every side over this, and it's bizarre. It's bizarre. Over the weekend, there was a policy posted by Anthropic before the U.S. had ever said anything at all and said, hey, we have these new AI models. We have Fable 5 and Mythos. And it's really, really powerful and it's really, really strong. Now, this comes amid a lot of companies that are starting to scale back their AI use. Why? Because it's really, really expensive. And all of the investments, oh man, who could have told you that's what was going to happen? Anyway, that it's just not worth all of the chaos and the nonsense yet until it gets a lot better. But now we have 2 models that are a lot better. Now, it eats up a lot of the money that you put into the AI, because you have to pay for some of these things, a lot of these things. And it'll eat up your money really, really, really quickly. But these models are out there and they were kind of cool. Now they put the Anthropic crew, who's the ones who would eventually have their knees hit with a sledgehammer by this federal ban that isn't really a federal ban, although that's how they treated it. Anthropic posted a statement. Anthropic is one of the AI companies. I use Claude quite a bit for transparency's sake here. So they called for enforcement and regulatory authority on their own AI with teeth. So Anthropic said the government should be able to block or deter the deployment of models that pose a significant risk of catastrophic harm. We must avoid overly broad or heavy-handed regulatory power. Our framework proposes both a mechanism for blocking dangerous deployments and concrete safeguards that would prevent that power from being misused. So essentially, Anthropic is saying we need to be regulated, but we should be at the table when things are being regulated. That's their argument. Now, it's a very interesting thing to say because they also suggested that, well, at least as one CEO said, on this Anthropic, really impressive, really cool new models and stuff that they were releasing here, that they had fully autonomous weapons. That's what these AI things were. They're fully autonomous weapons. And it started freaking some people out a little bit.
Fully autonomous weapons. This is not the partially autonomous weapons that are used in Ukraine or could potentially be used in Taiwan today. This is the idea of making weapons that fire without any human involvement. Now, even those, I think that, our adversaries may at some point have them. So perhaps, they may at some point be needed for the defense of democracy. But we have some concerns about them. First, the AI systems of today are nowhere near reliable enough to make fully autonomous weapons.
So here's the thing, though. They then, on April the 7th, release a big, huge statement that says, hey, it's not long before such capabilities proliferate, and says basically there's going to be a super duper ultra skeleton key nuclear device of AI. And they, who have been working with the Department of War, have made it perfectly clear that they think that their stuff is destructive. What are these things? So again, there are these two models that they had been teasing. There's this Mythos preview and Fable 5. And so again, he's said they aren't fully autonomous yet, but it's quickly happening. Oh, it's getting here. It's getting here very, very, very soon. He then basically flips and says that now the weapon time is here. Or not he himself, excuse me. Some other individuals were making that case. So making the argument that the new models had found all of these old vulnerabilities in a bunch of old software that we've been using for years, or models or operating systems, suggesting that essentially if you had this tool in your hand, then you could go to big, huge government sites or corporate sites, or you could go to huge infrastructure across the globe and you could wreak significant havoc. It would basically give you the skeleton key to get in anywhere forever that you wanted. And then if you can do that, well, I mean, we're really in the end zone here. So after all of these claims that essentially were tantamount to a nuclear explosion of super duper evil and AI is coming, finally, the government made the case, all right, over the weekend, through the Department of War, by the way, that Anthropic is no longer allowed to give any foreign national of the United States, so anyone who is not a U.S. citizen, no foreign national is allowed to be given access to Mythos Preview, the new AI model that they're working on, or Fable 5, which is also really powerful. And even if the foreign national is here inside the United States, then they can't have access to it. Now, there are a couple of issues with this. How are you going to enforce that? Anthropic doesn't necessarily have the tools to enforce that. Could they institute those? Yes. Is that fully within the purview of the Department of War and the President of the United States to ban foreign nationals from having access to something? Yes, it is. And reinforced consistently at the federal level, at the appellate court level, and then at the Supreme Court level itself. The President of the United States, through his Department of War, can absolutely say, nope, you can't just give China access to this. Now, this is a little funny because the President of the United States has also allowed a bunch of Chinese students to come into the United States to places like Purdue University, who are Chinese nationals, who then Anthropic will turn around and hire. So that's a problem. The problem, I would say the problem would be importing a bunch of foreign students to the United States and giving us access to absolutely everything. That would be my concern, not necessarily just the AI itself. The funny thing is, so what happens? So Anthropic shuts off model access for everyone. Everyone. Like if you go to Claude right now, it'll say, we can't use this. You find out why. And then said, we're flying to DC to find out what the problem is. And this brings us to the issue. This is the whole crux of the matter for me. Are AI weapons fully autonomous? Nope. Not even close. Not even close. I'm sorry, that statement that it's really close. Nope, not true. And by the way, my sources for this, I've recently been asked about this Endural drone and a Russian equivalent, the first fully AI-powered drone, and that it's so powerful and amazing. No. Nope, still requires a lot of human control, as all AI does, right here, right now. It can replicate a ton of stuff, and it's kind of cool. However, Anthropic, as much as I like them, and I think that, by the way, the models they have right now, they're not sponsored or endorsed or anything like that, they're the model that I use. I think that Claude is probably the best of the bunch right now that I've used. They did this to themselves. When you go around saying the government needs to regulate it, we've got a nuke. Oh my God, it could give you access to anything. All of these old Linux and these old FFmpeg vulnerabilities for encoding videos that everyone uses for video stuff. And then OpenBSD, it's like the most security hardened operating systems in the world, and we have access to it. Someone please stop us. And then the Department of War said, okay, stop. And everyone's like, oh, that's terrible. How could that happen? You asked for it, dude. I mean, I don't know how many times you can go up to someone and say, hit me, hit me, hit me, hit me, before finally someone slugs you in the jaw. And everyone's freaking out about this. And I've said this before. It's just not that big of a deal. I'm sorry. It's just not. Now, do I think this is a really capable tool? Yeah. Do I think the federal government needs to pay a little bit more on the attention side? You know, do they need to pay a little bit more attention to what it is that's going on? Do they need to pay attention to what models that are being used? And do I think the Department of War should have the authority to ban foreigners' access to things? Yup, absolutely. I sure do. But we got to be consistent about it. Before we even get there, we got to really look at how foreign nationals are being given access to very important things here in the United States. Now, that said, I want to move on to a couple of different things in the show side, because the UK is also trying the ban everything approach, but they're banning social media for minors, but not just any, 16 and 17-year-olds, which is very strange. Under 16. Social media ban for under 16. So 16 years and older, they can have access to social media. We'll get to some of that in a bit. First and foremost, though, for 250 years, America has been a bastion of freedom. And as we look ahead to the next 250, we are reminded that freedom is ours to defend. The Alliance Defending Freedom is standing in courtrooms across the country to protect those freedoms that we cherish: life, free speech, religious freedom, parental rights. We're thrilled to have them as a sponsor of the show because they stand up for the freedoms that we believe in as a nation. Those freedoms must be preserved. The ADF is approaching a critical fiscal year-end fundraising deadline. Your support today helps the ADF defend these freedoms so they can endure for many years to come. So every dollar that you give right here and right now will be doubled thanks to a special matching grant from the ADF crew while funds last. Visit joinadf.com/Tony or text TONY to 83848 to give today. That's joinadf.com/Tony or text Tony, TONY, to 83848. And a huge thank you to the crew over at ADF for sponsoring the show. So that brings us to one final big chunk of news that I've been meaning to get into this show. We really can't leave it alone. There was an ICE agent, Immigration Customs Enforcement agent, that was struck today during an attempted arrest in New Jersey. So the officer was hit by the vehicle in the attempted arrest. The officer then opened fire as the driver sped away. The confrontation, according to Fox News coverage of it, unfolded along Route 72 in, and I'm probably going to get this name pronounced wrong, Manahawkin, shortly after federal immigration agents moved to take the suspect into custody. Authorities say that the vehicle was hit by gunfire, but the suspect managed to escape and currently remains on the run. Police say they weren't involved in the ICE operation, and there's currently no known threat to the public. So in a second here, we're going to cut over to Scott Mikowski and a really great conversation about what's currently happening with Immigration Customs Enforcement, and the danger that those ICE officers are facing, and then what Americans can actually look to being accomplished over in the next couple of months. So we're going to cut over to that here. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Don't go anywhere. A little bit more tonight on the show.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
good to be joined by Scott Mikowski, former Immigration Customs Enforcement Agent and Deputy Field Office Director. Good to have you. Thank you very much for giving us a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Tony. My pleasure.
Well, let's dive right in because there's a couple of things we could hit today. But Representative Pramila Jayapal of the Washington 7th variety has introduced a brand new extra special super duper amendment that she says makes something illegal that she already claims is illegal.
My amendments would at least insert some badly needed fixes into this monstrosity of a bill. My First Amendment prohibits funds in this bill from being used by ICE to detain or deport U.S. citizens. We should all agree U.S. citizens should never be detained by any agency conducting civil immigration enforcement, and they certainly should not be deported. This is about protecting the most basic constitutional rights of U.S. citizens. ICE has zero authority to even detain U.S. citizens. And yet, since Trump's inauguration, a clear pattern has emerged, with U.S. citizens being detained for days and even weeks by immigration authorities. The administration denies this, but over and over, they've been proven wrong. Just last week, it came out that ICE detained U.S. citizen Dulce Consuelo Diaz Morales for 25 days. When I tweeted about this, DHS's Tricia McLaughlin attacked me and said I was wrong about Dulce's citizenship. But last week, she quietly deleted that tweet. My amendment ends all of this, and it ensures that ICE cannot use funds to detain U.S. citizens.
Well, what do you have to say about that? I wouldn't call it legal expertise, but it's something a congresswoman certainly could say.
I mean, I'm not surprised by anything that comes out of their mouths now. It's a full assault on anything immigration related. They're so obsessed with abolishing ICE. They'll come up and say anything, and they're banking on half of the people in the United States being too lazy to look it up for themselves when they make these outlandish claims.
So, Scott, just to get a question here, let's take a random federal agency. Let's say the USDA. Let's say that I go up to an agent of the USDA, they're out inspecting something, and I go ahead and throw a right hook and clock him right in the jaw. Does the USDA have the federal right to hold me even though I'm a U.S. citizen for a little while?
Yes, because, I mean...
No.
You know the answer to that, but... Yeah, I mean, all of that stuff, Tony, gets lost in translation, right? They frame it the way they want to frame it for specific reasons.
Well, I mean, I'm seeing so many stories consistently. I mean, for example, Raphael Warnock of Georgia has suggested that additional funding for ICE is $70 billion, but also we could magically end homelessness for nearly 8 years by just spending $70 billion. Are we really at the stage? I know that as a former member of law enforcement, I know how frustrating it can be whenever people just throw random numbers around. If you ever talk to any officer who's had to speak to individuals citing magical laws and statutes that don't exist, you know what I'm talking about. What is the real effect that you think, from a law enforcement perspective, that this has on the American people who hear this? We could end everything by just $70 billion for 8 years. What runs through your mind?
Again, like, just banking on the average American voter not being smart enough to research this on their own and understand. I mean, we've been trying, and politicians have been saying for the last, I've been alive 61 years, right? So I'll be fair. The last 50 years, I've been hearing about we're going to end homelessness. No, it's a money pit, right? They never come up with meaningful solutions. And so it just goes on. And these become talking points. Like, it's just like this, Tony, when somebody says, oh, you know, we should be giving it to our vets. Really? Really? We're going to give it to our vets. Okay. And then when they do something for veterans, they complain about that. They've been trying to end the suicides for vets for how many years now?
Right. Right. I'm obviously I'm frustrated because this kind of action, this attitude and behavior, it does quite consistently generate and encourage real violence. And we've seen that with the assaults on law enforcement. I know that you guys over at the Oversight Project have done consistent work and research to try to expose some of these permissive structures. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you is kind of a more boots on the ground approach to fixing some of these things. We saw a lot of the antagonism towards regular local and state law enforcement. You know what I mean by regular there.
Yes.
When body cameras became ubiquitous. And now we're looking at putting body cameras on federal immigration customs enforcement agents. Do people realize how quickly the narrative is going to shift once they see how curiously some of these protesters are acting on camera?
I mean, I can answer that. We just go back to what happened when they wanted to mandate it for police. Now you have defense counsel not wanting to admit body cam footage because it does damage.
Yeah.
So for me and for the officers of ICE and for anybody in law enforcement, it's imperative that they wear that. Okay, so they could show these people. I mean, you could take any clip of Delaney Hall you want, any clip. ICE is not antagonizing. They're not starting it. They're protecting a facility. They're protecting the detainees and the employees inside of it. But they know, and they're banking on getting no help from Newark PD or the state police. And when they do, they attack them. And then the narrative switches to, well, we're a sanctuary state. You're not supposed to be doing that. They just don't want anybody to enforce any laws.
So that kind of brings me around to the final question of who needs to be held accountable first. Obviously, Americans agree that people need to be held accountable. Obviously, we see, for example, Representative LaMonica McIver body slamming federal agents like a really bad discount version of the Kool-Aid man. You see other federal Democrat officials, I should say, that are waltzing up and demanding all kinds of nonsense, and you get encouraging this, antagonizing that. What do you see as kind of being the first step for accountability here? I mean, there obviously, because a lot of people need to be held accountable, but when we look at the order, because there's only so much time that you have in this administration to do things, from your perspective, who comes first?
And it comes first in what, Tony?
Sorry. It's a weird question for sure. If I have to get the federal prosecutors out tomorrow, right, and we're going to hold some people accountable, all right, we're going to say we're going to solve this, but we have to start in the right way because we don't have enough federal courts to deal with all of this all at once because they're clogged with nonsense. What is the best way to go after this right here, right now? Like just for a first, obviously not saying that if we cover this first, nothing else will be covered. Tomorrow, if you had the magic wand, who gets put under the magnifying glass of federal prosecution first?
Personally, I'd like to see the federal government go after the governors, the lawmakers, right? The ones that enacted the laws. And, anybody that's been harmed, been victimized by an illegal alien and then released on detainers, I say this to the American people, sue everybody. The state would hate it if you sued them. It would cost them money, but sue them for malfeasance. I mean, listen, they have the right, Tony, and everybody knows this, okay? They have the right to, sovereignty and, the government. I get all that, but they're releasing hardened criminals back into the very communities. Right. And then these people are being victimized. So who should be held accountable? I'm telling you, the governors, the lawmakers. And what's going to happen, Tony, if that were to start happening and we had attorneys out there that say, well, I don't know if I could win. No, what's going to happen? The entire state's going to go into discovery mode. And everything is going to be released for the American people to see. Every email, every little memo that they drafted up to circumvent the law and Donald Trump. And that's the bottom line here. Okay, I'd attack them first.
I think that's I'd say that's a pretty good start. I think that's also what a lot of Americans are calling for consistently. Scott Mikowski, again, appreciate your work over with the Oversight Project. Obviously, appreciate the work that you did for our law enforcement on the federal side as well. Thank you very much for giving us a couple of minutes.
Tony, thank you so much for having me. God bless.
All right, really briefly here, not even some of the mail time. We'll do a little extra bonus tonus today. There is one final bit before I fly off to New York. I can't help sharing with you. So first and foremost, the British side of things, This is a clip that is truly, again, another clip that is distressing. Over in the United Kingdom, there is a right-wing activist who, again, kind of does the Steven Crowder, Charlie Kirk, sets up a booth to debate anyone very calmly. He was just outright assaulted today over in the UK. Truly, truly awful. Migrants just come up, start assaulting him. Or I shouldn't say migrants. Individuals of youth, color, and alternative languages. And then one of the ladies watching the thing just screaming things. People smashing his camera and then stealing it. Young leftists assaulting him. Now, I will say this: if the police had showed up, I'm sure they would have arrested young Bob. So the UK is continuing to go just down the drain, but it's okay because Keir Starmer has shown up and he has made the most announcement-y of announcements. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. He has announced that they are banning social media for children because it's unsafe and it makes people unhappy. Wow. Here's Keir Starmer.
Social media is making children unhappy. It's making it easier for bullies to harass and abuse them.
It's making it easier for bullies to harass people. Hey, you know what's actually dangerous? Getting shivved. Or the attempted beheading, where the guy is blinded in one eye and lost his other. Or the rape gangs that hunt down young women in the UK. That sounds a lot more dangerous than cyberbullying from the right.
And it could even be harming their mental health. Exposing them to content that is dangerous.
Now, what he's saying is true. Now, the answer to this is that parents have some stones and they don't let their kids on social media. That's it. That's the whole thing. The answer is parents having stones and not allowing their kids to have a smartphone. Now, if you don't like that, you're not convincing me. And if you, again, are a parent and you give your kid unfettered access to a smartphone, you're asking for it.
Because that's what grabs the attention. It's designed to be addictive.
It is. That's why you shouldn't give your kids cocaine. Right? Right? You don't sit your kids down on the couch and put porn on the TV. It's highly addictive. It's destructive. Duh. You don't hand your kids social media, which is designed to continue the dopamine regurgitation station forever ad nauseum. Duh. But they're focusing on this, pretending that you're doing something here?
Of course it is. Features like the infinite scroll, they're designed to lock you in for hours.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, there's an opportunity cost to that. It stops children doing their homework, reading.
Great. Again, still, if you're a parent, don't give your kids phones like that. Give them a flip phone. Oh, but I really want it to be... No, give them a flip phone. I stand by that from what I saw in the education system. I talked to students who were given early phones, and I absolutely asked them in parent-teacher conferences the tough question. In front of their parents. I had the opportunity. There was a child who was really struggling with a severe attention disorder, and I asked him, a 7th grader, in front of his mother right there, I said, how old were you when you first saw porn? Because I knew that's what it was. I knew it. He told me 8. Age 8 was the first time that he was exposed to it. And shocker, right then and there discovered he'd been addicted to it ever since. Social media is destructive for children. That is the responsibility of the parents. I'm sorry, the idea that Keir Starmer needs to come in and whatever, and then the idea that, it's too late. No, we've got kids. Are they going to be given phones? No. Are they on social media? No. For their safety? No. Oh, they're going to miss out on what? What are they going to be missing out on? Ooh, oh no. Gee. I genuinely do not care. And then people are saying, it's reported that they didn't ban some platform. I just don't give a flying fig about the British pretending at the parliamentary level that they care about their civilian populations whatsoever. And that kind of gaslighting schoolmarmery is truly, truly something that over the next couple of months, you're going to see more riots in the United Kingdom because the true causes, the true problems haven't been addressed. Now, that said at the end here, before we finish, if you would consider liking the video, seriously, liking the video would help us an absolute ton. To be very transparent with you here, I'm going to be in New York for the next couple of days. I'll be on CNN News Night tomorrow evening with Abby Phillips and Scott Jennings. So if you're really in the mood to watch, some suffering, feel free to tune in over to that. That'll be a real hoot. Also, be in New York a couple of days. We're going to try to do a show tomorrow. It is likely to be earlier. You'll notice I'm not giving you a time. So subscribe to the Daily Signal as well, so that anything else, when you see we're going live, hey, they're going live. And also in our description, there's a link to our Discord. That's where that can be announced as well as getting information for mail time and other related things. As for Wednesday and Thursday shows this week, I'm not sure. We'll see what we can do. It'll all depend on how lovely New York City is this time of year. Until then, take care. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Y'all, take care.